Hi everyone. Thank you for joining me for this Earth Day celebration. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sue Holloway. I'm a homeschooling mom, an entrepreneur, an educator, and the author of A World Worth Imagining. This story was inspired by this awesome group of young people that I worked with at the Forest School for many years. One Earth Day, we were standing by the pond, and I had asked them to imagine what the world would look like in 100 years. And I was thinking that they would maybe talk about how big the trees had gotten or how much the pond had grown over, but they didn't. And one of the girls refused to imagine. She felt like we would have destroyed the world by then, and that made me really sad. And I made a commitment to them that for next year I would have a different kind of story to tell, because I realized then that the kids really understand the crisis that's facing the planet. They're hearing those messages, they feel the weight and the responsibility that comes with that inheritance. But the messages that I felt like that they weren't hearing, that none of us were hearing, were the messages that spoke of hope, of what our future could look like. The ones that said, if we get it all right, this is what it might look like. And so that's what I wrote. I wrote a book about that. I wrote a book about hope, of the wonders and the possibilities that our future could hold. And this Earth Day, in the midst of all this change, it feels like a really great time for us to step back and really think about what it is we want our world to look like. How could we reimagine what the new norm for us could be? And so, gather round, because I have a story to tell. In a world unlike ours, yet not so very different, a young girl sits on top of a small hill overlooking her village. She leans thoughtfully against an old cedar, considering her life and the words of the village elders. The space between beginnings and endings can feel pretty bleak, they often say, but she doesn't remember that time. She was still little when the old world fell apart and the new age truly began, but the elders do. And this year, on the day of remembering, the chosen elder told the story. I come from a time when people are driven by fear and self-interest, said old Jeremiah, sitting at the front of this year's gathering. He looked small and frail in that big chair, but his face shone with a strength that brought silence over the crowd. A time when the wisdom of the trees and the lands could no longer be heard, when the earth was sick from the ways of the people and needed to fight back to reclaim its balance. It was a time of despair and foreboding, when all dreams of our future were of a world destroyed by people. A time, he recalled in a voice not much more than a whisper, when we could no longer see hope in the faces of our children, the burden of over 100 years of reckless living clouding their light in their eyes. Old Jeremiah paused for a moment, and then slowly rose to his feet. He spoke again, but the sadness had left his voice. His words were now filled with promise as they echoed throughout the gathering. Yet from the ashes of the old world despair rose visionaries, seekers, and believers. They knew that things could change, must change, and they were guided by this belief. Gifted with the ability to see beyond what was, to the wonder of what could be, they dreamed of a new future. Drawn together by hope, they forged a new path. And slowly, things changed, and a new world unfolded. My world, the young girl reflects, shifting a little in her spot by the tree, letting the afternoon sun warm her face. Looking down on the valley below, she sees her village surrounded by a splendid forest. She can hear the voices of the songbirds and see green hills in the distance, vibrant and alive. Pathways wind between the houses and the many gathering places connecting them all. The stream, brilliant in the sunlight, runs clean and clear through the village. As she breathes in the fresh air, she catches the faint scent of smoke and bread wafting up from the community oven in the village center. Not far away, she sees a place where the healers combine their knowledge to bring strength to the sick. At the edge of the forest, members of different churches, temples, and sanctuaries come together to tend a simple garden. It is a sacred place for both beauty and peace to grow. Up the road, the house of the elders sits, nestled in a cedar grove. The old ones meet there to share their stories, wisdom, and experience. Learning centers are scattered throughout the village, under the shade of a big oak tree, high atop the clay hill, and in the town library. People of all ages can be seen trading skills and knowledge. Today, a small group is gathered working together on art pieces to grace the public spaces. Children are everywhere, following their joy and their passions, working on their bikes, foraging for medicinal plants, learning the language of birds, playing ball, reading, creating, dreaming. And between the bustle and the sounds of life, the young girl can also hear the silence. She comes from a world guided by respect and compassion. It is a world where people are valued equally for the ways they give to their community, and where everyone, regardless of their god, their wealth, or the color of their skin, is treated with kindness and dignity. It is a world where all life is sacred, where the earth and all her creatures are honored, her teachings and gifts cherished, and her rights protected. It is a world where everyone understands that we are all connected. The people, plants, animals, bugs, and birds are each a strand in the web of life. What happens to one strand affects them all. Knowing all this, it's hard for that young girl to imagine the past the elders described, and the bravery and the determination it must have taken to make such a change. She wonders if there was, back then, another little girl who sat on a hill like hers. She wonders if that girl had the hope and daring to imagine this new world. She believes she did. "Thank you," she whispers. This is my dream of what a world worth imagining could look like. It's not meant to be your dream, but it's more meant to inspire you to think about what you imagine. It's meant to hold a vision for what could be possible when we move forward doing the hard work of creating a world we all can look forward to. And it's meant to be that voice in those dark times when things feel pretty impossible that speaks up and whispers in your head and says, but wait a minute, what if? What if this really can happen? One day, driving in my car with my family, there was some news on the radio that was pretty disturbing, and my partner and I were talking about it, and one of my kids piped up from the back seat and he said, but wait a minute, what if Mom's story comes true? And I thought, that's it. That's why this story exists, to be that voice that speaks up. And so I hope maybe if you need it sometime, it can be that voice for you. Right now, though, our next part of our ceremony, you need to grab your little item. And if you don't have one, I was asking folks to bring a special item that can be symbolic for your commitment to the earth. Something like a stone or a shell, something that you're willing to give as a gift. This is my little amethyst. If you need to, you can pause the video and go find yourself a little treasure. And then we're going to gather around here again. This is the time that my kids and I, my 4 school kids and I, we usually think about making a promise to the earth. And I have a quote by this woman, poet, author, Diane Ackerman, that really speaks to me, and it's the commitment that I like to make every Earth Day since I found it. And it doesn't need to be the promise that you make, but it could be. You can either make a promise in your head or make a promise at home out loud. You can read along with what my promise is because I have it posted in the comment section here, or you could just repeat after me. Here I go. So I'm holding my object really tight because I'm imagining that my commitment is going into this symbolic item here, my stone. And I'm going to close my eyes because I feel a little bit more connected when I do that. So here we go. I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself up humbly as a guardian of nature, as a healer of misery, as a messenger of hope, as an architect of peace. I will honor all life, wherever and in whatever form it dwells, on my earth and in the mansion of the stars. So that's my promise to the planet this year. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this stone when we're done here, and I'm going to go put it in a special place outside as a gift, as a gratitude, saying thank you to the earth for all the gifts that she has offered us, and to promise to help continue to create a better world. So now, to wrap up your Earth Day celebration, I really invite you to think about what a world worth imagining would look like for you. What would it sound like? What would it feel like? And to talk about that with your friends and your family, and then to create something. Maybe you get some sidewalk chalk and you draw all over your deck or your driveway, or maybe the floor of your house, or you can create a wishing tree. There's some banners of hope you can create, even just haiku, or just words that express what would make a world a better place for you. And I would love if you shared it on the event page here below. You'll also find down there I've shared some ideas of things that you can do and what kind of supplies you need to do those. So, and also if you're interested in your own copy of the book, or to see some of the other things that we've done, you can visit our website, which is aworldworthimagining.com. And I just hope you all have an incredible Earth Day, and thank you very much for joining me. See you.